Back at the bench once again with a hilt that folks probably haven't seen around for a while, as the production for this hilt kit was sold out within about 2 months of its release. I want to say about 3 years ago. It is The Lost One by 5280 and Dagobah Swamp. It is the Sipho Clone Wars hilt as found by Jedi Master Plo Koon on a very stormy, weathered planet. The hilt kit was made and designed to kind of give some of that weathering to the hilt, and matches the actual name of the episode for the hilt run, which was The Lost Run. So if you want to see the episode, by all means, go look up that name in the Clone Wars, and you'll see this hilt make its appearance. The reason for this one being on the bench is it's got the first that I know of master chassis that has ever been produced for this hilt. I took some time away from working on the master chassis for this one. I started it back when we designed the hilt, but didn't really end up finishing it, and finally have gotten back to the design this year and have produced what I think is a pretty neat chassis to kind of go with the hilt. It's got some nice weathering that you'll see in a moment, and other than that, we'll dive into it. The hilt kit was made as a 2-button hilt, so you've got the main red button switch here, and then hidden between two of the fins, spikes, is your second auxiliary button over here. Cover tech, and it is aligned as per what we saw on the show, where this pommel and fin lines up with the red button. You'll notice that here they're evenly spaced at about 90 degrees from each other, and then up here on this end you do get different spacing on those fins, which kind of gives it a lot of the design aesthetic that it had, which was one of the reasons Dagobah and I decided to go ahead and do the hilt run back when we did it. So we'll reveal the chassis here. The hilt splits at this line, so the whole lower section comes off. However, and this was a tip I gave when we released the hilt itself, I kind of squeeze a little bit here to make sure these don't rub, because if you have any kind of dirt or dust and such underneath those fins, they can scratch or rub the finish on the hilt handle. So you get a first peek here. It does have a crystal chamber, a plasma gate, and some accent pixels. Before we light this up, I'll try and get it, there we go, to focus in. So you have a plasma gate here. There is a ring of pixels above it that rotate around. There is a lower crystal, lower pixel on the top of the crystal chamber that lights the upper crystal, and then a pixel here that lights the lower crystal. And then back here next to the speaker, there is a set of accent pixels back here, which is basically like a blade connector without the pins for the blade itself. Show you if I can get it to focus. There's the crystal chamber. The center ring is suspended by 3 tiny little rods to kind of help it balance out. I didn't do any major rods and tubes across the crystal chamber on this one. I just didn't feel like it was needed. And then on the lower chassis, it is brass. The 2 of these rings are rhodium, and then everything else is brass except for the 3 stainless steel tubes. And so the weathering is done fairly nicely to give it an aged look without being too dark or too beat up looking. To reveal the kill switch, as well as the 18350 battery, I've got 2 little notches, one here, one on the other side, and you just kind of loop a fingernail in here, peel that off, and there's your battery and kill switch. We'll turn it on.
Zyphodius. When I was Chancellor, I sent him on a mission to deal with a flare-up in the Pike Syndicate.
And this is the Kyberphonic Lost One font that was created originally for these sabers when they were produced. We partnered with him to create this font and take from that episode of the Clone Wars a lot of the quotes that went with it. So you'll see now the crystal lit up. Real quartz crystals. These ones were clear, cut down in size, obviously to fit. And I know I won't be able to focus the camera. Oh, maybe I can. There we go. Just to look at the 2 points coming together there next to my pinky. Makes for a really, really nice view in person. And there's those accent pixels on the bottom. Got kind of a glowing fluid type look there on camera. It does have a pixel connector up here as well. Swing on, swing on, twist off, enabled. And then you'll see the plasma gate cools down. That's kind of like the overall of the hilt. It does have a Smuggler's Outpost speaker inside. The sound venting comes through here. A lot of folks had the comment that the hilt itself was kind of quiet when it was originally produced, and they rotated the pommel to allow the vent holes to kind of show between these fins. This one is lined up where the venting actually is under each fin for the aesthetic reasons. It hasn't changed, however, the amount of sound that comes out of it because of the change in the way the chassis vents sound itself. So it's still almost as loud as an Eco chassis that I have in one of my own versions of this hilt. We do have a Yoda and a Dooku font.
Master Yoda.
And they, I believe, if I have the font sounds right, they basically announce each other on this one. So we get some red down here. It's got a little bit more of a glowing effect.
Master Dooku.
Oh, that's right. Yaddle does this one, as well as a couple of other voices do the Dooku introduction. Again, these are both Kyberphonic fonts. The Yoda is, I don't recall the name on it, and the Dooku one is from the Tales of the Jedi font, from his package of fonts from Tales of the Jedi. So this one definitely brings in a lot more red in that chamber, which I know Sypho was not a Sith, so he didn't have a red, but this in person looks awesome to have lit up in a red. It stands out really, really nicely. And then we have more flashing and activity down in the pommel end. And then it slows down. Kind of like a power cell. And that is kind of the overview of this one. As I did mention, 18350 battery, so obviously you're not going to go taking this with out trooping or anything of that nature, but then again, if it's a master chassis, that's not something I would ever do with a saber myself personally, and I wouldn't recommend it to anybody who owns a master chassis saber. That is the Lost One, and it's first of its kind master chassis.